Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Legacies. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, we open with Super Squad trying to take down Hope and failing, apparently 17-0, and just every time it sucks, and it does not work out for them no matter what. Because not everyone has fully worked out their abilities, in particular in Ethan's case. And so now they're trying to figure out, like, what did they do to how they approach this. I also love the whole thing, like, Ethan's, like, popping up there and they're like, what are you even doing here? Like, he's like, yeah, I turned intangible and now I sometimes have a hard time turning back visible. It's like, why aren't you at a desk? He's like, people kept sitting on me. And at one point, Caleb's being like motioning his hands and accidentally he's, oh, sorry about that, dog. It's just like, yeah, it's like they're kind of a mismatch hodgepodge of like, yeah, we got to get back in the flow of things of like, especially because, well, there's more people to the super squad and we've got to figure, especially when you're going up against one of the strongest beings out there. It's like, she's got all the cheat codes. She's got the powers of a vampire, werewolf, and a witch. It's like, yeah. So how do you like totally go up against that? Because the problem is too, they're also hindering themselves. It's not like, oh, this is a monster we're trying to kill, this is a monster we're just trying to stop. But that in itself leads to a disagreement between Lizzie and Josie, because Josie, you know, is focused on helping Hope, because yes, she's mad at Hope, but she thinks Hope might be the only means of helping their dad. Her being a tri-bred, she kind of breaks all the rules anyways as her very existence. So maybe there's something, a byproduct of that could potentially help their dad's circumstances where other supernatural elements couldn't. But Lizzie's more so about finding something else, because it's like the last thing she wants to do right now is rely on someone she thought of as a friend who ended up hurting her dad and putting him in this position. So it's like, no, I'm not going to think anything about that. So she does ultimately find a spell in her dad's stuff, but it's a spell to that needs human sacrifice, which she's all about, because it's like, right, I'm going to pick someone that's going to die anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. But that's the thing Lizzie also didn't think about either. It's like, luckily she doesn't do it in the end, but there was a moment she was ready to do it, but the daughter of the man she was going to sacrifice is like, he was already on near death's door, but she came there wanting to say goodbye, and it's like, right, your sister didn't actually get a chance to say goodbye. I wonder is that something that kind of influenced that thought, but it's like, right, you were able to say goodbye to your dad for now. Your sister didn't necessarily get that opportunity, so like, you know, who would you want? You wouldn't want your opportunity to say goodbye to your dad stripped away from you. So, but that's also the complicated thing too of like, killing someone would have weighed on her conscience. Like, yeah, you might have brought your dad back, and your dad wouldn't have been all hunky-dory about knowing, because Josie had made that point, like, dad wouldn't want to come back that way. But she's like, dad in the past would have done anything to kind of get what he wants. And that's the thing, Alaric isn't that person anymore. Like, living your life that way comes at a price. And so for him, it's like, he's not that person anymore. Yes, like, doing anything doesn't, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. So Alaric kind of had to learn those lessons the hard way, and obviously he doesn't want his children following in his footsteps of like mistakes he made in the past. So there's that side of things. There's a whole super squad themselves, Caleb trying to be the leader, pushing forward. I thought it was interesting because I was like, if you notice, like, he is just using his vampire abilities. He does have dragon abilities that he hasn't really tapped into unless he like loses himself, because using those powers he got from Malivore would just be a constant reminder of like, right, you betrayed us. And that does get thrown in his face by Jed, but it is the thing of, he's especially I love like the obstacle course of just like training it out of like, here's like fake weapons and stuff. Here's an opportunity for us to test stuff out. But it doesn't work and they all end up dead. I even look at it like, no, it didn't even hit my heart. It hit this. Like, I'm good. But it's like, yeah, Caleb's just trying to be the leader so much. But MG points out, like, the reason why you're doing that is because you feel so guilty about it, that's why you're rushing ahead to try and do this. Like, you're kind of taking it out on a team, but it's like, right, of course the team isn't going to gel well because, like, no one trusts you right now. You broke their trust. Like, I get what you did. You wanted to protect Cleo, and you wanted to save Cleo, but you doing what you didn't work. The only way it worked is by Josie working with the team. And so that kind of shows the team wins out all the time, and you going off on your own is never the answer. So MG benches him, which he's like, no. MG did the right thing. Like, I'm not in a position, like, I've got to figure stuff out on my own with my powers, but, like, the rest of the team is going to be good. It is interesting as the series has progressed, how much like a Lark Caleb has become. I mean, for one, him being the team player that he is, he was never always that person, but to see how much he's grown over the course of this series, and even then, like, kind of fixing him and Jed some drinks, it's like, man, you and a Lark were getting pretty, like, tight-nip anyway, but it's almost like, yeah, you're filling that role to some extent. I almost feel like when it's all said and done, if a Lark ever decides to walk away from all of this completely, I get the feeling this will be Caleb's. I think Caleb would inherit it. I mean, not less Lizzie or Josie, well, depending on how that plays out. Not less if, because of the merge, if they're able to find a way around it, or if that's just an inevitability. If they're able to find a way around that, then I'd assume maybe they'd inherit the school, but I'd almost think, like, Caleb would be his choice of successor. Not less if they fix the Hope deal with the Hope situation, not unless she becomes that. I don't know. Like, there's many potential people. I mean, hell, you'd even see MG running a place. That's, like, far into the future, but I definitely see, like, those are some, like, big possibilities and opening opportunities. I could feel like each one of them could fill that position, so I just think that's kind of interesting to think about. You also have the situation with Cleo. She knows of there being a means of dealing with Hope, but she doesn't want to do it. I mean, first and foremost, I think it's one, she doesn't want to kill Hope, because it's like, right, I already went down that route, and if me and Hope were friends at one point in time, it was me getting close to her just so I can turn her into the tribrid, but it's also like, right, this is what I wanted in the first place, so I think there's some part of her that's like, if I hadn't put this into her mind, maybe we wouldn't be here right now. I mean, granted, Malivore wouldn't be dead, but sure, it's still like the thing of, I think Cleo feels personally responsible, like, yeah, she didn't be, like, but she's the one that pushed that narrative forward about her becoming a tribrid fully, being the only means, so it's like, I think there's a responsibility on that, but she does still consider Hope a friend, and so it's like, right, I don't want to kill her, but also knowing, like, if the super team, the squad, found out about that too, like, and if they, like, well, because I think, for one, if they found out they want to stop her, too, if they did decide together, like, oh, we need to do this to kill Hope to stop her, then I think that would also, they would never forgive themselves for it. It's like, even Lizzie and Josie, as mad as they are about it, like, they would never forgive themselves if they were responsible for killing Hope, not just stopping her, just killing her. It'd stay with them forever. That'd be one of their biggest regrets, because she's not only a friend, she's like a sister to them, so there's that. But at the end, we do see that, Cleo does test it out. Now the question is she going to tell everyone, or is she going to be the one that's like, right, if it comes, I think it's going to be the very, very, very last resort is using this thing. I don't think she wants to. Interestingly enough, the weapon comes from the tree, the trio of Josie, Hope, and Lizzie planted together that ended up being the one. So it's like interesting. It's like, yeah, and I love, like, Cleo's perspective on it too. She's like, right, of course there would be balance. The fact is that, of course, nature would create the means necessary to kill the tribrid in the place that the tribrid was born. So it's like, it's interesting that without even realizing it, that Hope took part in making the weapon that would ultimately stop them. But I mean, obviously that all kind of goes back to, like, the originals, the Michelson family in the first place, like the ash oak tree and everything, so that kind of, like, it's very, like, sepulchral in that regard. I also love the whole, like, right, Finch was, like, tasked with, like, right, using magic to keep a track of Hope, but it's like, wait, and then they pull out the full map, and it's a smiley face, like, yeah, you were never tracking Hope, she was messing with you the entire time. I was like, oh, that's pretty messed up. Circling back to Lizzie and Josie really quickly, both of them are kind of lost in their own rights, because Lizzie has a hard time knowing what's the right thing to do without their dad. She's like, I'm just waiting for him to wake up. I need him here to kind of point me in the right direction. So Josie takes her to the box to kind of talk to a version of their dad so she can work this out and kind of, because he kind of acts as her guide and her moral compass. And but Josie wanted to go, but Lizzie told her no, she wanted to go at this alone, because it's like, and Finch says like, hey, there's some problems that people kind of have to deal with their own, that other people can't come along with them to fix. But the thing is, now that Lizzie's not around, Josie's kind of like stumbling herself, because at the very, and it's something Finch was all about, while Lizzie's around, Josie doesn't have to deal with her own messed upness, like in the sense of, right, you have someone else you can attend to and focus on, that way and that's always been Josie's thing, like she's always put her attention towards Lizzie rather than focusing on herself. So now it's like, it's okay to like, Finch is telling her it's okay to like break down, you know, the world isn't going to fall apart if Josie just if you take some time just to kind of break down and be, you know, heartbroken about, you know, like letting it out about how you're feeling about everything that's going on. So there's that. Another angle to this episode is Clark. We find his Ryan, his normal life as he's with his girlfriend Trudy, and she's like, oh, you know what it is? He's like, our anniversary? She's like, yes, it's been a splendid 2 weeks. I'm like, really? I don't expect that to be an adult thing. Like, I think that's like a younger person thing to do, like teenage thing to do. I wouldn't expect like an adult to do. I mean, you know, no shaming or anything. It just, I was like, oh, but I think that's kind of the whole point of like, oh, she's a little like, I mean, and even Hope points it out later on, kind of a little weird. The fact is, and it's even then like Ryan had like you had Hope was like, what's this picture? And he was like, oh yeah, we took that on our first date. And it's like, what? I don't know many people that would, you know, take a picture like that on like your first date or something like that. Makes you wonder how they actually met, because we didn't touch on that, because I'm definitely super suspicious of Trudy. But regardless, the fact is that, you know, like Hope, you know, shows up and it's like, oh yeah, I used to date his brother. So it's like, yeah, me and Ryan are old pals. So she's obviously trying to find the original bloodlines to the triad. And he's like, well, I can't help you. I'm living a normal life. And he's like, he points her in the right direction. And she's like, oh, no, come along. He's like, no, I have a life here. I don't want to go. And just even Trudy standing at the window smiling, like, it's so giddy. And, you know, as like Hope referenced, like, oh, a very Stepford wife situation. It's like, yeah, kind of get that vibe. And it's like, I don't know, man. It seems weird. But Hope decides like, oh, like it'd be more fun to have you along. So rather than I do force your hand, but rather than compelling you to come with me, I basically blow up your life. I make it seem like he cheated on her. And even anytime he was trying to leave a voicemail, she's like, oh, come back to bed, Ryan. She's like, he's like, can you stop blowing up my life? And she's like, oh, come on, this is more fun. Like, you know, isn't it better? You're having more fun as Clark than you are as Ryan, because they eventually get to the facility. And it's like, yeah, like, obviously they take out some guards, and it's like, yeah, it's fun. And then they have Argus, which is the eyes everywhere being, based on the, what god is he? What mythology? Because he comes up in American gods. But he's a god who basically has eyes everywhere. That's why he's like, has eyes in his hands. It's supposed to be a creature that kind of sees everything. So, but, Clark's like, yeah, I'm not having fun anymore. And Hope pushes him down. So it's like, yeah, this could be your chance to find out who you are, Ryan or Clark. I guess he did that on purpose, so that was pretty interesting. Like, because Argus is chained up, so he, like, goes all around, like, the boxes and stuff like that. And ends up, like, Argus ends up getting stuck. But then Hope shows up to cut the chain, because it's like, oh, this way we get to decide. Because, like, Clark has to, I guess if he kills the creature, he's Ryan. If he doesn't, he's Clark. Because most likely he'll get killed by it. But it's like, oh, I guess we'll never find out, because the moment she cuts it free, it bounces away, it leaves. And I'm like, at first I thought it was immediately going after Hope, but it's like, no, it just straight up leaves. I'm like, what? I guess it's like, oh, I have my freedom now? Cool, I'm gonna go see the world. I guess, I don't know. But the moment they leave and go back, Trudy's already thrown all his stuff out. And I love that moment between Ryan and her, because she's like, oh, your life is pathetic. It's like, oh, human life sucks. He's like, yeah, it does. But the fact of the matter is, as sucky as some aspects of life, you can't have the good without the sucky parts of it, you know? But it's like, this is all he's ever wanted. He's just wanted a normal life, to have a family, you know? As I look at his jacked up family situation, him and Landon never really had many opportunities to be brothers, and I think that probably sits with him a little bit now too. Like, yeah, like Dad being gone is one thing, but it's like, damn, Like, me and Landon, we never really fully got to be, like, normal brothers. So I think that's kind of something to deal with. But also on top of the fact is, of like, now I have an opportunity to just have a normal life. He even talks about the fact is, what's really pathetic to him is like, isn't me, it's you. Like, he's like, you could have compelled me to go along with you, but you didn't. You wanted it to be my choice because you wanted me to make that choice like you did. You abandoned everything, the life that you had. And he was like, in the friends, he's like, the fact is, I used to be jealous of you because you went out and basically made your own family and you had people by your side. He was like, I was jealous of that. And now I see, like, you basically made the choice to kind of walk away from that. You know, and for him, it's like, that's the real pathetic thing of like everything you had, and you weren't trying to convince me to make this choice. You're trying to convince yourself that you made. So it's like somewhere deep down inside, there's still some Hope Michelson that knows what she's doing is wrong and just needed. She was just trying to reassure herself of like, right, this is the right thing to do. And he's like, go home, don't open that book. You know, go home before you do something you regret. The problem is, Clark doesn't know. She already did something she regrets. And it's like, if they don't fix this Alaric thing, like if something happens to Alaric, like they may never, like she may not be able to come back from it. Because there are just some things you can't rewind time on, like, you know, so. I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing and progression for Hope's story. So, is she going to find what she's looking for? Part of me is wondering, I'm like, are we going to find out that Trudy's connected to Triad and something? Especially because she's like, oh, like, no more lies, no more secrets, right? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, so tell me everything there is to know about vampires. Not just the supernatural world, specifically vampires. I'm like, because I was like, is she part? It's like, she can't be part of Triad, can she? I don't know, man. There's something there. I'm like, there's got to be something there. Not unless this is just kind of like, hey, I get to open up myself, all aspects of who I am. Like, I wonder, did he tell her everything about who he used to be and everything? I don't know. And the fact is that she's so willing to be like, yeah, oh, tell me all about vampire. Like, I don't know how he, like, the fact that she's so gun-ho and all about it, that's why I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. There's something there that just doesn't sit right with me. But Clark did, like, call up Caleb about Argus being free. But then Caleb went and decided to handle it on his own, even though Jed was like, oh, yeah, we should train together and stuff like that. But it's like, yeah, I got to train on my own. I guess for him, it's like, once again, he's got to get their trust back. So I think he's going to go above and beyond sometimes to try and prove himself. Like, I mean, even Hope had to work to get their trust back because they were like, yeah, you were always about getting Landon and not putting the team first. So he's kind of in that same boat now. But at the end of the day, too, I think he's kind of making the wrong step here. He should have told the rest of the team, but I think for him, it's like, right, this is an opportunity to test out my dragon abilities, but also, if I bag this on my own, then, you know, it'll be a sign of trust between me and the team, I guess. You know, going alone is never the answer, but for right now, I think Caleb feels like he has to do this before he's able to kind of be welcomed back amongst the squad, so. Then we found ourselves in limbo with picking up with Landon and Ted. And so Landon tries to go across the line, but Landon, the ferryman says nope. So it's like Landon's like, wait, why am I not allowed on the other side? I'm not a bad guy. But then Ted's like, oh, maybe you're not as good as you think you are. Because they have to figure out, like, the only, aside from giving stuff up, like, the way, because I thought the whole point was, like, right, you have to, like, give up something you care about, but it's like, well, it seems like there's two ways, like, either the ferryman will accept something else as a price, or the gold coin, so if you have nothing else to give, the gold coins are your only opportunity, but Ted's like, because Landon's like, right, I'm going to trust you, and you're going to tell me exactly where to get the gold coins. He's like, I honestly have no idea where to get one. And they run into Oscar, which, as Landon puts it, OG Chad. It's like, right, you're the guy he used and sacrificed to become fully powered as the necromancer. Because it's like, this is a person that, it's like, right, you promised to not only bring me back to life, but also the love of my life, so. But then it's like, poor Oscar, he's like, right, the fact is that I waited a long time and I figured after a while that, right, it didn't work and it was successful, but he's like, no, he was still kind of happy about their adventures together and stuff. He was just like, oh, what we went through and everything, and it's just kind of like, wow, he willingly sacrificed himself. But Landon's the one that kind of figured out where the gold coin might come about, that it's like, right, it's unfinished business, and so Well, it was kind of, well, at least in Oscar's case, like, being bound by this is what's keeping him here. Because he stayed here because he wanted to see how everything plays out. And so Ted ends up telling Oscar the truth of, like, right, I had the power and I never brought back anyone that deserved it. I did just use you for power. And it's like, oh, you're just using me to get a coin. And I was like, no, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for you. I want you, like, hopefully you can forgive me, but it's also about you letting go and being able to move on. And ultimately, it does work because Oscar gets the gold coin. And at first I was like, is he going to try and take that? Like, what happens if you do try and take a gold coin from someone? I wonder... would it just snap back to them or what? But at the end of the day, this isn't the necromancer anymore. He is Ted. Yeah, as he says later on, I am still a work in progress. But yeah, they send Oscar off, and it's like, yeah. But in the end, the necromancer gets a coin too, and he's like, yeah, because you did a good thing, you know? Because I think in this moment, rather than being selfish, you were selfless. And so you did the right thing. You helped Oscar move on. So it's like, yeah. And he's so happy about it. But then he's like, no. And he gives the coin to Landon because he's like, right, I promised you I wasn't going to peace without you. But then the moment he does that, he gets one of his own. He's like, wait. He's like, I did it. I beat you, ferryman. And Landon's looking at him. He's like, sorry about that. You know, still work in progress. Lo and behold, who shows up? Alaric being like, aren't we all? And I'm like, yeah, look at this. Look at this trio. This is awesome. Which is just interesting in many different lanes. Because, yes, he's not Malivore anymore, but it's Landon with Ted, old pals Ted and Alaric. And it's like, hey, we get to meet up again, buddy, after you sacrificed yourself, you know? That's all, you know. I mean, the reason why he's here in the first place is because he did the right thing. I was still expecting, like, oh, there's going to be a twist with it. It's like, nah. I'm curious, like, is it... Because, obviously, Lizzie and Josie aren't going to be too happy if Alaric goes off to peace. But I think for him, it's like, no, I need to go back. Because he's not dead, it's just that his mind is kind of in the state it's in right now. Now the complicated thing becomes, like, if they end up saving him after he's made the choice of he's ready to pass on, is going to be the interesting and complicated thing. Because if he does, well, because, like, for one, he might not have any interest in, but then also probably Landon finding out, like, what happened to Hope might be something that, it's like, well, the necromancer might be the means of, well, Ted... But it might be a thing of, like, he needs to become the necromancer again to help them. Because it's like, they might need to go back. Because we can't go to peace yet until, like, Hope's okay. And he can't go to peace until he knows, like, his children are okay. Hope's okay. Like, what she's become. And I think Landon's not going to be able to be at peace until he knows Hope's okay and that she's better again. So, I think that's where we're kind of going to potentially go with that. But this trio reunited like this is definitely going to be interesting. To see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.